I hadn't been home in almost 3 years. Not because I was too busy, not because I didn't care, but because every time I came back, it felt like I was just a guest, an inconvenience. Still, this Christmas, I wanted to try again. I left work early, packed the trunk with wrapped presents. Nothing too flashy, just things I knew they liked. Dad's cologne, Mom's arthritis gloves, a scarf for my sister because she always said she was cold. Even got a tiny plush reindeer for my nephew Liam. He was turning 5. I drove 8 hours across state lines. The roads were frozen, gas stations were closed. At one point, my windshield washer froze mid-spray, and I had to stop on the side of the highway with the hazards on. But I kept going, because it was Christmas, and Christmas is supposed to mean something. I didn't tell them I was coming. I wanted it to be a surprise. I thought they'd smile. I thought maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. The last time I saw them was Thanksgiving 2 years ago. I flew in, brought pie, paid for dinner. My mom told me I looked tired. My brother asked if I had figured my life out yet. My dad just kept checking his watch like I was wasting his time. But I smiled through all of it, helped clean up, said thank you, hugged them goodbye. After that, I got a new job, better pay. I moved cities, sent money home whenever they asked, paid my sister's rent when she lost her job, wired $72,000 to help my dad refinance the mortgage. He didn't even say thank you, just texted got it. But I didn't need thanks. I'm their child. That's what you do for family. When I finally pulled into the driveway that night, the lights were all on. The house was full. I could see silhouettes in the living room, laughter through the windows. It was snowing. I turned off the engine, took a breath, and walked up to the front door with the gifts in my arms. I knocked. I waited. I heard footsteps. Then the door creaked open. It was my sister. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Then she said, "What are you doing here?" No hug, no Merry Christmas. Just confusion. "I wanted to surprise you all," I said. "I brought gifts." She didn't move, just called back over her shoulder, "Mom, it's her." My mom walked into the hallway, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked at me, then at the presents. Then she said, "You should have called. We weren't expecting company." Company, not family, not daughter, just company. I said I didn't mean to intrude. I just thought, it's Christmas. She looked past me, out into the driveway. "You parked in front of your brother's spot. He hates that." I nodded. "I'll move it." She didn't say anything else, just turned around and went back inside. I walked in slowly. The living room was warm, smelled like cinnamon and roast ham. My brother was there, sitting with his wife on the couch. My dad was watching a game on TV. Nobody got up. Nobody looked surprised. "Hey," I said softly. No one responded. I placed the gifts under the tree. There was a tag on the top one. "To Mom and Dad, love always." I turned around. My dad finally looked at me. Then he said, "Didn't think you'd show up. We thought you were too good for us now." I blinked. I just wanted to be here. My brother snorted. "Thought you ran off to be some big shot in the city. You only show up when you want attention." I didn't argue. I never do. I walked into the kitchen, tried to help set the table. My mom pulled the plates out of my hands. "You don't know where anything goes," she said. "Just sit." I sat. Dinner was quiet, except for when they spoke to each other. Not to me. They laughed about inside jokes I wasn't part of, talked about plans I wasn't invited to. When I asked if anyone wanted eggnog, no one answered. Then my dad raised his glass. He said, "Here's to my kids, to Michael, who never left our side, to Lucy, who always brings joy, and to Liam, who's growing into a smart little man." Then he paused. He looked at me and added flatly, "And to the one who forgot where she came from." Everyone laughed. I didn't. I just smiled, softly. When dinner ended, I stood up, told them I had to go. My sister rolled her eyes. My brother shook his head. I walked to the door. Then I heard my mother's voice behind me. "Don't come back like this again. If you want to be part of this family, act like it." I didn't answer. I stepped outside. The snow was thicker now. My car was half covered. I scraped the windshield with my sleeve. My hands were shaking. I got in and started the engine. Then I saw flashing lights in the rearview mirror. A police cruiser pulled into the driveway. I sat still. A knock on my window. I rolled it down. The officer said, "We got a call from this address, something about a suspicious vehicle and possible trespassing." I looked at the house. My brother stood in the doorway, watching. I said, "This is my parents' house." The officer nodded, checked my license, asked if I'd been drinking. I hadn't. He apologized, said he had to respond to the call. I said it was fine. Then I drove away. 8 hours in silence. I never raised my voice, never asked why. I just left. They didn't know. I had just bought the deed to that house. I didn't stop driving until the sun came up. My phone was silent. No texts, no calls, not even a "Did you get home safe?" I checked the weather. It was 12 degrees Fahrenheit. My fingers ached from the cold, but I didn't turn the heat on. Just kept driving, letting the silence fill the car like fog. I had a hotel booked, just in case. I never expected to sleep there, but I booked it anyway. A backup plan, like always. When I checked in, the clerk asked if I was visiting family. I said no. That night, I left the TV on, volume low, just enough to keep me from hearing myself breathe. I didn't cry. I haven't cried in years. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. I had the paperwork already printed, a quitclaim deed. Their names were still on the documents, but I'd paid off every cent of the mortgage. The house was mine. It had been for 8 months. They didn't know. Because I never told them. Because they never asked. When the foreclosure notice came last year, my mom texted me a photo of it and said, "Do what you can?" No thank you. No explanation. Just do what you can. I was between jobs then, living in a studio apartment with no kitchen, eating cereal with bottled water, but I wired the money. Every single payment, every single month. The bank account I used to pay the bills, it was under my name. The deed transfer was quiet, no fanfare, no announcement, just notarized signatures and a digital confirmation in my inbox. That house, the one they called the cops on me for standing in front of, was legally mine. I didn't want to evict them. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to matter. I left the records office and drove back to the city. My apartment was dark and cold, but it felt safe. I sat on the floor, stared at the ceiling, and made a decision. No more visits. No more, maybe this time will be different. I would disappear, quietly. Let them forget me, if they hadn't already. I didn't block them. I just stopped answering. I got promoted at work 2 months later. New title, bigger salary. Moved into a high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows. I furnished it slowly. No rush. Just one piece at a time. A couch, a dining table, a single chair on the balcony facing the skyline. Some nights I'd sit there with tea and wonder if they even noticed I was gone. I didn't hear from them until spring. It was a text from my sister. "Hey, can you send $400? Mom's blood pressure machine broke." I didn't reply. A few days later, another message. "Hello, are you okay?" Then nothing for 3 weeks. Then, "Dad said you were being dramatic." I put my phone face down and went to sleep. The next month, I took a trip to Seoul, business class, window seat, paid in full. I didn't post pictures, didn't tag anyone. Just walked the streets alone. Ate hot soup in tiny restaurants, rode the train to the coast. I didn't speak the language, but I didn't need to. I felt invisible. And for the first time, that was peace. When I got back, there was a voicemail from my mom. "I heard you bought the house. Why didn't you say anything?" She sounded tired. I didn't call back. A week later, another message. "Your dad thinks you're trying to punish us." Then a pause. "Are you?" I deleted it. I wasn't punishing them. I just stopped giving them chances to hurt me. Summer came. I hosted 2 colleagues for dinner. We sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker like embers. One of them asked about my family. I said they lived far away. She asked if I missed them. I said I used to. Then fall arrived. With it came another text, this time from my brother. It just said, "The roof's leaking. Can you fix it?" No greeting, no "how are you?" Just the same as always. Ask, expect, vanish. I responded. Just 3 words. "Call the landlord." He replied with a question mark. I didn't explain. A week later, I got an email from the property manager I'd hired. She said my brother had threatened her over the phone, called her a liar, said, "This house belongs to my family." She asked if I wanted to escalate. I said no, just document everything. In November, I received a formal letter from my father's lawyer. They were attempting to claim ownership of the property based on verbal agreements and moral obligation. I didn't hire an attorney. I sent back the signed deed, highlighted in yellow, certified mail. Attached was the receipt of every mortgage payment I had made for 18 months. I wrote a note at the bottom: no verbal agreement can erase legal ownership. That was it. The lawyer didn't respond. 2 weeks later, I got another call from my mother. This time, she left a voicemail that lasted almost 4 minutes. She said I was cruel, said family meant nothing to me, said I was a ghost walking around in people's memories. She asked how I could be so cold. She said, "You never used to be like this." She was right. I used to knock on their door with arms full of gifts. I used to beg for their approval with silent sacrifices. I used to sit at the edge of the table, hoping someone would remember I was there. But people change, especially when silence is the only thing they've ever been given in return. The last message I got from them was on Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after I drove 8 hours through the snow. It was from my sister, a photo of the living room, the tree, the table full of food. She wrote, "Wish you were here?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep. They didn't know. I had just closed on a second property, downtown, all cash, no mortgage, and I was never going back. 3 months passed. I didn't check my phone anymore. Not for them. I used it to pay bills, order groceries, schedule meetings, but never for hope. That part of me was gone. I moved into the second apartment. It was smaller but newer. I bought it because it had east-facing windows. Mornings felt different there, brighter, cleaner. I furnished it with one intention: silence. No TV, no rugs, no paintings. Just white walls and empty space. People asked if I ever got lonely. I didn't answer. I started my own business in April. A consulting firm, small at first. Just me, 2 clients, and a laptop. By June, I had 4 employees. By August, I had an office. I never posted about it, never bragged, never sent a family group text saying, "Look what I built." Because I knew what would happen. They'd say I got lucky, say I changed, say I forgot where I came from. But they never remembered where I came from either. I grew up in the same house they lived in, but it never felt like mine. I was always the guest, the afterthought, the extra, the one they forgot to pick up from school, the one who didn't get birthday parties, the one whose room became the storage space when she left. So no, I didn't tell them anything. I just worked, silently. On my 32nd birthday, I spent the day alone. I went to a small Italian cafe downtown, sat by the window, had a slice of chocolate cake and mint tea. No candles, no singing. I paid in cash. When I got home that night, I saw I had 2 voicemails. The first was from my mom. She said, "Happy birthday. If you're still mad, we get it. But life's too short to be bitter." The second was from my father. He said, "Still ignoring your family? Thought you'd grow out of that by now." I deleted both. The next week, I donated $25,000 to a local women's shelter. No name, no plaque, just a wire transfer and a quiet message from someone who used to have nowhere to go. I signed the paperwork for a 3rd property soon after, a cabin near the mountains. I'd never stay there, but I liked knowing it was mine. In September, my sister emailed me. Not a message, an actual email. She asked if I could help pay for her son's school tuition. Said times were hard, said Liam had been struggling. She added, "He misses you." That one stayed with me, because Liam was the only one who never looked at me like I didn't belong. He used to run to the door when I visited, hug my legs, sit next to me at dinner even when the adults didn't. I thought about it for a day, then I replied, "I've set up a fund for him. Full tuition, no need to ask again." I didn't get a thank you, but I didn't need one. 2 months later, I received a formal notice from the city. The house I had bought for them, my childhood home, was behind on utility payments. The water had been shut off. Electricity was next. I called the service providers, paid the bills. Then I made a decision. I sent a certified letter to the address. It said, "As the legal owner of the property located at 107 Silver Pine Drive, I am issuing notice of eviction effective January 15th. You are requested to vacate the premises within 30 days. Failure to do so will result in legal action." I signed it. No emotion, no anger, just law. 5 days later, I got a voicemail. It was my brother. He said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Then my mom. "This house has been our home for 30 years. You can't just take it away." I didn't respond. They had already taken it away from me a long time ago. They just didn't know it. January came. They left the house 2 days before the deadline. No goodbye. They moved in with my aunt, from what I heard. A month later, I put the house on the market. It sold in 11 days. I didn't visit during the sale, didn't take one last look at the room where I grew up. Didn't save anything from the attic, just signed the closing papers and moved on. With the money from the sale, I bought my company a second office space, hired a new team, expanded into digital products. Revenue doubled, then tripled. I never took a photo in front of the building, never held a ribbon-cutting ceremony, never sent an announcement to my family because they wouldn't have cared. Or worse, they'd pretend they did. I never hated them. That would have been easier. What I felt was emptier than hate. It was like staring at a wall and realizing you've been talking to it for 20 years, and it never planned on talking back. People say family is everything, but sometimes family is just a word people hide behind when they want something from you. By April, I had hired a financial advisor. He said, "You're in the top 5% now. You could retire by 40. I said, "I won't." He asked why. I said, "I have nothing to retire from yet." Because my story wasn't over, not until they understood what they lost. And I wasn't going to scream it. I would build it, silently, brick by brick, until the silence was too loud to ignore. The end didn't come with an explosion. No confrontation, no yelling, no tearful apologies. Just a slow unraveling of everything they built, without me. I heard through someone, an old neighbor, that my dad had been diagnosed. Something serious, heart, liver, maybe both. I didn't call. I just listened to the message, then locked my phone screen. A week later, my sister emailed again. No subject line, no greeting. She said, "He's asking for you. Just come see him." Once she didn't say please. I didn't answer. I hadn't heard from him on any of my birthdays. Not once. Not even when I sent him the down payment for the house. Not even when I paid off his car loan without him knowing. The only time he ever raised his voice was to mock me. "You'll never make it out there," he once said. "You're too soft." So I stayed out there, and I got sharper, colder, better. I kept building. 2 more contracts came in that quarter, one from a major tech firm, another from a luxury brand that wanted my team for digital strategy. The same week my father's health collapsed, I signed a 6-figure deal. I sat in a quiet office with glass walls and dim lights, wearing a black turtleneck and drinking cold coffee. The money didn't mean revenge, it meant freedom. I didn't celebrate, just added the wire confirmation to a folder, labeled it Q2 wins. I walked to my car, drove home, passed a hospital on the way, didn't stop. The next message came from my mom. I didn't expect it. She never apologized, not even when I was 7 and she forgot to pick me up from school. And I walked home in the rain. But this time, it was different. She said, "We didn't understand what we were doing. We thought you'd always be there. We thought you'd always forgive us." She said, "I see your name in the news now. People say you're smart, powerful, kind." Then she said, "Maybe we never gave you the chance to show us?" I played it twice, then deleted it. Because I remembered every Christmas I spent alone. Every family photo I wasn't in. Every time I showed up, and they acted like I never did. I had nothing left to give them, not even attention. But there was one thing I hadn't done yet. One door I hadn't closed, it was my nephew, Liam. He messaged me on Instagram, just a short text. "Hi," I replied. "Hey," he said, "I want to see you." So I flew out. No one else knew. I met him at a diner off the highway, neutral place, no memories attached. He was taller now, deep voice, same eyes. He smiled when he saw me, like I was still someone worth knowing. We talked about school, about his favorite movies, about how weird the family had gotten. He said, "I don't get why they were always so mean to you." I didn't answer. He said, "They talk about you now, like they didn't treat you like garbage for years." I nodded. Then he said, "I want to be like you." That was the first time in years I felt anything close to warmth. Not because I needed admiration, but because someone saw me, truly saw me, and didn't look away. I left him a card before I left the diner. Inside was a prepaid college plan, fully covered, no expiration. He didn't know it yet, but I'd already paid the first year's dorm fees too. As I walked to the car, I didn't look back. Didn't drive past the old house. Didn't check if they were watching. I just left. A month later, I changed my number, set all social media to private, moved my business offshore, opened a holding company. Then I left the country, for good. No announcement, no goodbye. No more birthdays, holidays, check-ins. Just gone. I live in Lisbon now. Different time zone, different language, different silence. I walk along the coastline in the mornings. I drink coffee from glass cups. I speak to almost no one. And still, somehow, I feel more heard than I ever did back home. People ask if I miss them. I say I miss the idea of them. But the real thing, the cold dinners, the sarcasm, the empty chairs, the laughter when I left the room. No, I don't miss that. And they don't miss me. They miss what I gave them. My money, my time, my quiet forgiveness. That's gone now. They lost access. Not because I hate them, but because I love myself now. Enough to walk away, enough to stay away. Sometimes I hear from people who knew me back then. They say, "Your family brags about you now." They say you're successful. They act like they supported you the whole time. I don't correct them. I just smile. Because I know the truth. I was the background noise they tuned out. The spare chair at Christmas. The extra slice of pie they never saved. But now I'm the ghost in every story they tell about who they used to know. And I'm fine with that. Let them talk. Let them wish. Let them scroll my name on news articles and whisper. She used to come home every year. She used to call. She used to love us. And then maybe, just maybe, they'll realize that girl's never coming back.